Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kent with Bent 165, Dumb 3. Now, before you ask, yes, I did forget about Dumb 64. Yes, I will be doing a Dumb 64. But it was, my brain was just like 1, 2, 3. That's how numbers work. Which is how numbers work. But how Doom games work is 1, 2, 64, 3. Which is really, really annoying. Thanks, Nintendo, for naming your console with a number, thereby getting every single game publisher that ever published a game on your console to use the number 64 in it, messing up everything. So, don't get me wrong, I really did like my Nintendo 64 back when I was, being raised by my adoptive human parents. Because it was hard to use the controller, though. I'll say that. Not built for dinosaur hands. But, I forgot about Final Doom. Yeah, okay, fine, I'll do... Send me a DM or something with the list. So I don't forget, so it stares me in the face. Whatever, why don't you look it up? I probably will. That doesn't mean you shouldn't send me a list so it stares me in the face. And how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing alright. There are a few things I want to talk about before we really get into it. One is, there is a pinned chat up here. If you look at the top of your chat window, there should be a little pinned chat there. And that is for a GoFundMe for Roshana Keller, who is in the chat. Roshana recently had something happen that is actually somewhat similar to what happened to you, Bent, where she went on leave for some disability-related stuff, and then came back, and they were like, what if we just get rid of you instead?
Yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah, so as a result, Roshana has it's a rough spot right now. And so there is a GoFundMe. The initial goal was $3,500. Currently, it is at $5,092. So that $3,500 was there to cover housing costs because, out in California, housing costs are pretty crazy. And the only reason Roshana is out there in the first place is for that job. So that's great. Thanks. Thanks, former employer. Your big dick move, but I am happy to say that people are coming together and helping to donate. So if you go ahead and check that out, you can toss some money to help out with Roshana Keller, working on things like helping to pay for continued health coverage, housing, stuff like that. And also, sometimes just like groceries, right? So yeah, please feel free to check out that. We will be every once in a while double checking it to see how it is going. It's only been active for just a few, what is it, like a day or two only? It's very quickly met its funding goal. I think the funding goal was actually met within I think it was within 6 hours. So you guys have been amazing. Also, there are updates on the computer, but if you want updates on the new Dapper Dinosaur production computer, we have to meet the super chat goal, because otherwise I'll just keep it all to myself. The super chat goal is 30 of the teal or above super chats, and we have 1 hour, 47 minutes, and 25 seconds in order to get that done. So, there you go. I think that is all the stuff that I wanted to say beforehand. So Science Side Up is in the chat, as you can see. So Science Side Up, normally this would be met with Maddie. Maddie is the person who, in fact, runs the Science Side Up channel. And I am happy to report that Maddie is doing well after some medical procedures were done earlier, but, on some painkillers. So rather than being here while high on painkillers, Maddie's in the chat. So there you go. So we all wish Maddie a quick, speedy, and as little pain as possible recovery. At least I wish her that, and I assume y'all wish her that. If you don't, feel free to say that, and let yourself be known as, kind of a jerk. But, Bent, do you also hope for Maddie's swift and relatively pain-free
Absolutely,
recovery?
I do.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to kick you out of here.
Yeah,
who would be the Bent? I would have to find a new Bent. Do you know how hard it is to find people named Bent?
It's pretty difficult.
Yeah. I might have to find someone named like Ben or something, and then just have them tack a T onto the end of their name.
It's not quite how it works, but close.
It might be good enough for the show. But yeah. So with that preliminary stuff out of the way, um, we are here primarily to talk about Kent Hovind, right? And I'm going to be honest, I don't remember what Kent Hovind was talking about last time, so we're just going to kind of jump in blind, and who cares? So yeah, and when we talk about Kent Hovind, we do have a little bit of a drinking game. What are you drinking there, Vince?
I'm drinking Mountain Dew Baja Blast.
Very nice. The best
Yeah.
flavor of Baja Blast. Although I haven't tried the new mango flavor that's apparently only available at like Little Caesars or something.
Hmm.
And in part because I like to walk to go get food, and the nearest Little Caesars is just a little too far for me to want to walk there. I especially don't want to walk there and then have to carry an entire pizza back because they don't have a dining area because it's Little Caesars. You're supposed to just go grab a pizza and leave, right? Like you're not supposed to stay and eat the pizza there. So, I don't know. Maybe I could go and just get the Mountain Dew and drink it on the way back. I don't know.
You would always do that, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I am drinking a cucumber gin and tonic. If you are wondering, how does one make a cucumber gin and tonic? You make a gin and tonic, except before you make the gin and tonic, you muddle a bunch of cucumber slices at the bottom of your glass. And then what I end up doing is I actually put in the gin first, and then I muddle the cucumber in the gin so it has like the various I don't know, cucumber juices, I guess, have somewhere to like dissolve into, and time to suffuse the gin with their flavor before you add in ice, which is next, and then I usually go for lemon juice or lime juice, and then tonic. Give it a quick stir, serve it on some ice. Good stuff. Plus, at the end, you get gin-soaked cucumber chunks, which are actually pretty tasty. They're
Yum.
cucumbers soaked in gin, and I like all of that. So there you go. Anyway, cucumber juice sounds weird. Sorry about that. Did you know cucumbers are a melon?
I did not know that, no.
Yeah, cucumbers are a melon, like honeydew or cantaloupe or water.
It's not that surprising.
Yeah, it's got some of that like weird refreshingness that some other melons have. Anyway, we got a couple things to read here before we go into the drinking rules, and then we will start in with Kent. So first of all, I want to say thank you very much to Kent Long Halstead of Nantucket for $4.99. Says, for everything Doom 3 did, Dead Space did better. I generally agree. Although I will say, Doom 3 did give us what is basically still the current Hell Knight design, and that Hell Knight design is way better than the original Hell Knight design. As much as I have some amazing nostalgia for like the original Doom, and you know all the computers it was installed on that it probably shouldn't have been installed on, but you know the first chapter of Doom was just shareware, so it went everywhere. As much as I have a lot of nostalgia for that game, the Hell Knight design in the original Doom is not nearly as good as the Hell Knight design in Doom 3, and I am glad that they stuck with the Doom 3 design for Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal and Doom the Dark Ages. I mean, obviously there were tweaks, but like the basic idea of what is a Hell Knight, the current incarnation started in Doom 3. Although the Doom 3 version of the Cacodemon is a little and I'm still not sure how I feel about the new Doom Dark Ages Cacodemon. Very big departure, and I like the design. I just kind of wish it were a different, related demon rather than just being the Cacodemon, because it doesn't feel like a Cacodemon, right? Sort of like how the Pain Elemental is basically just a different version of the Cacodemon. If you just started calling the Pain Elemental a Cacodemon, I'd be like, no, I don't like that. Anyway, that's enough talking about random gameplay stuff, even though this is a Doom-themed game. That's why the fire is on, because we're in hell. Because, one, we're listening to Kent, and also that's where a lot of the Doom games take place, is in hell. Because, look, if there's one thing that I like, it's crazy sci-fi franchises that also have literal demons. There's a reason that I like both Doom and Warhammer 40k. They're both crazy sci-fi franchises with all sorts of crazy guns and super soldiers, or super soldier in the case of Doom, and demons. That's just a fun combo for me. All right, Terrador's final form for 500 Argentinian pesos says, so if we get rid of this fantabulous queen, we could have him replaced by Ben 10. You know, Ben Tennyson, Ben T, Bent? Please don't kick me out. We love him. Sorry, please don't kick Bent out. I won't kick Bent out. Unless, of course, he's a jerk to Maddie. In which case, he's
I
out of
would
here.
never,
I don't.
never in a million years.
I don't think you would. No. Maddie's great, and we definitely like Maddie. I want people to be mean to Maddie. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, "I'm going to go out on a limb and assume Kent was saying something very silly and reeking of male bovine feces." Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe assumption. All right. So let's go over the rules. Now, remember, before we actually start this, if you decide to play along, you do not have to use alcohol to play along, and you also just don't have to play along at all. The drinking game is completely optional. It's just there for fun. It doesn't mean anything. I'm in control of the drink counter anyway, so like I can just change the rules on a whim, and I have done that. But if you do decide to play, please feel free play with, if you want, play with alcohol, but you can also play with water, juice, tea, coffee, soda, vape pen hits, eating a chip or something. Whatever. Having a bit of popcorn, whatever you want, right? Just high-fiving whoever is next to you. I don't care. As long as it's, they say, don't go out and play the drinking game with some kind of intoxicating substance and then go out and, like, drive a car, fly an airplane, operate heavy machinery, ride a maker, text your ex. Don't do any of those things. They're all bad ideas. So that being said, we have a new super chat from Dutch Domestic T-Rex Tunicate for $5 who says, "Melons are berries, penguins are marine reptiles, AIG is a sack of member." Those are all true facts. Yes, those are in fact true facts. Although they're facts that just feel weird. But yeah, we'll take a drink. Thank you very much. Ooh, that is very cucumbery. Although, I think the tonic I bought might be a little bit oversweet, because this drink is a little sweeter than I would like it to be. But, hey, whatever. That's fine. All right, so we will take a drink whenever Kent Hovind basically says something that's so stupid that we just need some brain coolant. So we will take that drink. We will take a drink anytime Kent Hovind actually gets something factually correct when he's not just directly quoting someone, right? So it actually has to be something that's stored in his brain, and then he says it out loud to us. And if that's the case, then yeah, we will take a drink. I also want to say thanks to Anne, who just donated $5 additional to Roshina's GoFundMe. That's it. I'm still having trouble with words, apparently. So, I don't know. If you're the praying type, pray for me, because apparently I'm just losing the ability to speak English. And eventually this stream will just be in like a weird mishmash of like French, Spanish, Latin, tiny bits of Greek, and Klingon. And that'll just be the stream. It'll be like Bodhi's version of like the pre-Babel language of every language smushed together, except it'll only be like those four, and it will be completely incomprehensible to anyone, even people who speak all four of those languages. Well, okay, maybe not if you speak all of them, but like whatever. Anyway, we'll also take a drink for every time Kent tells a joke that doesn't land or tells a story that didn't happen. Now, the stories that didn't happen, bit of a judgment call, but look, if it looks like something that should be like on r/that happened, yeah, we're going to take a drink for it. We'll also take a drink anytime Kent mentions that particular political party from like the 1930s and 40s in Germany. The ones who are increasingly popular in modern day America, despite the fact that America fought an entire war to get rid of those guys. That's fun. We will also take a drink anytime Kent Hovind cites a source, and then we're able to check the source, which is actually rare on its own. And instead of not supporting him, which the sources almost never support him, if it actually directly contradicts his point, take a drink. And that's called a Trojan source. And one of the most fun things about that is it's often the Bible that is a Trojan source. Sorry. Often we'll cite the Bible, we'll check the Bible, and the Bible says basically the opposite of what he's saying. And that's just wonderful. I love that. So let's see. We'll also take a drink if either Bent or I can predict what Kent is going to be saying, coming up, especially when it's not very clear. We will also take a drink if he mixes up what we can know about Lucy, the single individual Australopithecus afarensis, with what we can know about any wider taxon to which she belongs, whether it be her species, her genus, or even like her tribe or subfamily or whatever, right? Take a drink for that. Let's see, we will also take a drink anytime anyone super chats or membership milestone chats, anything to the effect Answers in Genesis are a bag of dicks. We will also take a drink anytime anyone super chats or membership chats. That's how that works. Yep. Anything with any of the kaiju emojis. Oh, I also want to say there was a $20 anonymous donation to Roshna's GoFundMe 14 minutes ago. So thank you very much to the anonymous $20 donator. We will also take a drink for each gifted membership. The fun thing about gifted membership, so the less fun thing is that YouTube has made it more random who gets those, so it's less based on participation in chat, which I don't like because it means that, generally speaking, it is even harder to give people memberships who are like long-term community members, but who aren't currently members, but like they chat a lot. And so it's harder to get those people super chats, which makes it ultimately, I think, less likely that people buy the super chats because they are less likely to know who's getting them. I think people feel better when someone they know gets the super chat. But whatever, if you do it, we take a drink in part because it's like the most efficient way to get us to drink. And a big part of that is that basically gifted members are more likely to actually do things like join the Patreon and become long-term fixtures in the community to grow the whole audience as like a thing. And I want to grow. I don't know. Does that mean I'm not grateful for who's here? No, it absolutely does not. But hey, the more the merrier. So let's see. We will also take a drink. So that's basically once we get to like 30, we'll just finish whatever drink we have and then go get another one and increment the drink counter that much. Let's see. Oh, if Mothra or Godzilla come by audibly, we will take a drink for that. And I don't know what I'm missing, but I feel like I'm missing something. Oh, Dapper's a professional. If I screw up the production here, so for instance, if I accidentally turn off one of the layers on the scene, or if I forget to unmute myself on coming back from a break, or I mute Bent accidentally, or something like that, I'll take a drink for Dapper's a professional. However, if it is a problem with hardware or software or both, or the internet or something like that, if it's something beyond my control, we don't take a drink for it. It wasn't me. So for instance, for some reason, YouTube has been taking up ridiculous amounts of memory lately, which it didn't used to. And for that reason, sometimes YouTube windows, especially in Studio, have been running out of memory. If that happens, that's not a Dapper's professional. That's like, hey, YouTube, why did you decide that you suddenly need to take up way too much memory? There we go. What have I forgotten, Bent?
You got all of them.
I feel like I didn't, but I believe you.
You did. I checked off each one at a time.
I know, I said I believed you. Unless you want me not to.
No, you should believe me.
Okay. All right. So let's see what Ken has for us. I don't fully remember, but let's go. And hopefully my computer, which is rapidly decaying, by the way, will hold up for the whole stream. Because otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to do.
That point is called the Moho-Revisic discontinuity.
Oh yeah, it's when we found out that Kent doesn't know how to say discontinuity and says like what did he say? How did he say it?
If you look on the far left over there, you can see Moho, M-O-H-O, named after some guy named Moho-Revisic. I'd have picked somebody else to name it after, but he said there has to be a place where the crust turns to liquid.
Which is not what it is, nor was it supposed to be what it was. It was originally thought to be just a change in the substance that the crust is made of. It turns out it's not. It actually has to do with pressure and heat, but it's not where the crust becomes liquid. Because, hey, spoiler alert, none of the crust is liquid. The outer core is liquid, and even the mantle isn't really liquid if you think about it. It's high enough viscosity that it acts like a solid under almost every circumstance. It's only under, like, millions of years worth of time that it becomes in any way liquid-like.
It's hotter and hotter. The deeper you go, the hotter it gets. Eventually, you get deep enough, the rock is going to melt. At some point, it changes from solid to liquid. That point is called the Moho-Revisic discontinuity.
There it is, discontinuity. I have trouble even getting myself to say it that wrong. Like, discontinuity. All right, I'm going to take a drink just because I don't even know how that happens. Like, Seriously. How is discontinuity not a word that Kent knows? Terrador's final form for 200 Argentinian pesos says, fun unrelated fact of the day, Jaguar Warrior in Nahuatl is Oceloch, where Oceloch, where English gets the word ocelot. Ooh, neat. Ergo, Mexico had an army of catboys. I rest my case. You know what? I'm gonna accept that, and that is just now historical canon. Don't try to change it. And yep, updated everything. And by the way, Bent gets free pizza today might end up being more like Bent gets like a free Philly cheesesteak or like a free lo mein or something. Because kind of had a lot of pizza lately. Time for that to change a little bit, but it will still say Bent gets free pizza because I'm not changing the actual text in the little tracker. So here we go.
Huh?
Why does this say the continental crust is lighter than the ocean crust? It's thicker but lighter?
Yeah, because it's less dense. Bent, do you think Kent will be able to explain that the less dense part of the crust can both be thicker and lighter because of how density works?
I don't think he has a clue,
Okay.
but maybe.
Okay.
You never know.
Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, I thought that the Moho was named after the first planet in the Kerbal system. Yeah. So, as a big fan of Kerbal Space Program, the first one at least, don't buy the second. Don't do it. Oh, gigantic waste. Yeah, it is called Moho, and I do like the Mohole. It's always fun to try to get to the bottom of the Mohole, and it's basically impossible. Yeah, it's not strictly speaking impossible, although it's very hard to get a craft that is maneuverable enough and also has enough fuel that it can actually make a safe descent and then also return from the Mohole. But it is a fun thing to try. And hey, if you turn on infinite fuel in the cheats menu, I will not judge you for it. So, there you go. And then Mixie for $5 says, Bent gets free dinner is fine. I feed stray cats. I can feed Bent too. Well, thank you very much. And let me update the tracker. So in case you were wondering, the 90% point is about where Bent gets a free, dinner. I was going to say pizza, but it's probably not going to be pizza. And it's not right as it hits 90, it's a few dollars past 90 because this thing is designed so it only displays whole number percentage points. But obviously that's not how the math under the hood. So there you go. And also, hey, if we get all the way to 100%, Bent has to wear another tutu in like 2 weeks. Or, well, the same tutu, to be fair. It's going to be the same tutu. But he'll have to wear it again in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something?
It would be nice, I will admit.
It's 30 miles thick. It's a different type of rock or different density.
He did it! Oh my god, Ken, you got the right answer about a science question! Oh, wow, I'm taking a drink. That's amazing. Ken got it right. Oh, wow. Look, anytime Kent gets something right, it is a cause for celebration because that man gets nothing. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, I just got a mental image of Roger discovering the Mohole. Oh, do you remember that time that Roger seriously thought that Mystery Flesh Pit National Park was a real, now defunct national park and it was proof of all of his nonsense? And apparently, he just never noticed, according to his logic, that during his lifetime, like when he was like an adult, according to the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park background lore, that there was a flavor of Coke made out of aphrodisiac monster juice drilled out of the ground. And apparently, that was just a commercially available product. It was Coca-Cola Heartthrob. It was literal aphrodisiac Coke made out of monster juice from underground. And that on its own, the fact that isn't a part of his memory, that he never actually experienced that just didn't ever occur to him that maybe that might be a problem. And his own audience had to tell him it was just an art project. That man took it seriously. And like, I'll give Kent this. I don't think Kent would think that Mystery Flesh Pit National Park was real. Because, come on, man. Joshua Geese, oh my goodness, just gifted $500 to the Roshna GoFundMe. Thank you so much. Look, as I'm sure you guys are probably aware, Roshna has been a big part of the audience for a long time now. And I'm very grateful to everyone who has donated. There have been there has been an amazing outpouring of support for people in need. And you know what? When I said a few months ago, like, you know, we need to come together and support each other because it's not like we can count on anyone else to do it. Apparently, y'all took it to heart, and I appreciate that because, yeah, that's pretty amazing. So thank you very much. Okay, here we go.
Is what this textbook says. I had in other colors in it. I'd never seen in a rock before like that.
I'm sorry, you might have had an interruption and buffering. Please let me know if you can see us back again. The OBS just lost its connection. But I seem to maintain my connection with Bent, so like, I don't know. But we should be back now. So hopefully everything is good. Sorry about that. In case you missed it, Kent was talking about how impressed he was because someone brought him a large polished rock. So like, I mean, okay. I understand being impressed by a really cool rock. I get that. I just don't know what point is that it's going to be made. He's going to try to make out of this. Like, I don't know.
And they said, oh, this kid said, my dad works for a company that goes out to in the Pacific Ocean. And they've got this big machine that blows the...
Okay, so it was polished basalt. Because that's what the bedrock under the ocean is. Primarily basalt.
The sediments away, down to the solid rock. And then they cut out slabs of rock on the bottom of the ocean. And they bring it up and slab it up to make countertops. And super rich gazillionaires...
Lieutenant Matt the Navigator says, Kent is a female penguin. Is there like a term for a female penguin that's like also rude or something? Because I don't get it. Sorry.
Will make kitchen countertops so they can say, my countertop came from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. Ha ha, where'd yours come from? Home Depot?
And the people who purchase the countertops don't have to go to the bottom of the ocean to get them. I'm pretty sure that company also just sells slabs of basalt to, like, you know, Home Depot. Taking a drink, because apparently Kent doesn't know how basic trade and commerce works. Absolutely amazing.
And they actually make rock out of the countertops. And
no, they make countertops out of the rock, Kent. Remember when, during my debate with him, he stated the debate topic as dinosaurs are birds.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I really
got that wrong.
Yeah, I really think Kent basically just doesn't understand very, very basic set theory. Like, I think Kent is confused by the statement, all ducks are birds, but not all birds are ducks. I don't think that is a statement that computes inside of his head. It seems like it, at least. All right, here we go.
Marble floors, or kitchen floors or whatever. Anyway, the kid gave me a broken piece of it that they had. It was just gorgeous. Something is different about it. Oceanic crust is...
There was no point to that. It was just a little story about how some guy gave him some basalt, some oceanic basalt. Okay, cool. Thanks for the story, Grandpa.
Definitely different than continental crust. It's certainly thinner. The way they tell the thickness of the crust, you can tap on something and kind of tell how thick it is by the sound it makes.
Kinda. That's not going to be very reliable unless you know a lot about what it's made of, but whatever, who cares? It's so minor.
Well, when earthquakes are happening, they send out a solid wave.
That doesn't make any sense. waves can't be solid or liquid or gaseous. I don't even know what that means. What what does it mean to have a solid wave? Ben, what does that mean?
I know you can have electromagnetic waves,
But like,
but not solid waves. That doesn't really make sense to me.
uh, okay, the
I'm not
S.
sure what he's trying to say.
Well, there is a thing called an S wave in seismic waves, right? And it's a shear wave, and it refers to the direction that the wave waves in, whether it's up and down or side to side. But like, yeah, as Stephen Gasway says, S wave. So S means solid, I guess. I think that's what he's talking about. The only thing I can think of is that he thinks that S waves are solid waves, which, no, they're the ones that go up and down, and P waves are like compression versus like extension, like a spring. I'm taking it. I'm taking a drink. Solid waves. I want to know about the gaseous waves, Kent. Is that just sound? I don't know. Jeez. You think Kent knows that it's okay to just go look things up if he doesn't know them? Like, he could just check.
I don't think he's ever considered looking something up.
Becca Justiniano says, then what are the P waves? Oh, those are urine. They're actually waves made of urine that happen when earthquakes happen. Because, just don't worry about it. Or as Jillian Wren says, pliquid. I guess it could be pliquid.
Actually, if we had a steel rod across this room and I tapped on one end, if your head was up against the rod, you would feel it almost instantly, but you would hear it a second later.
Nope. Nope. Okay. First of all, if it were up against your head, you would feel and hear it simultaneously, because the pressure waves would be transferred to your cranium, and your cranium is attached to your ear. Your ear is basically part of your cranium. So you can hear things that vibrate while in contact with your head. That's just a thing. You can check it. Like, I don't know, hold up a gaming controller while it's vibrating to your head. You'll hear. So, also, it is the case that the sound waves traveling through the air will hit you slightly afterwards, although it have to be a very, very long rod for that to be noticeable. Because the waves travel through the metal, like the motion through the metal rod, is actually transmitted at the speed of sound in the metal rod, which is going to be really high, because, solid, really high speed of sound in solid. So there's that. But also, sound waves, whether in the metal rod that you're tapping or in the air, are actually more akin to the P waves in an earthquake, which are pressure waves, like sound waves are, than they are like S waves, which are undulatory. Fun word. Goop23, who's been a member for 34 months and is at the Tetrapod level, says, in Rod we trust. So, and Side Up says, is he trying to say that P waves and S waves travel at different speeds, which is true, but P waves come first and then S waves? Well, maybe that's what he's going for. I really don't know.
The sound wave gets there slower than the movement of the steel would.
Both of those are sound waves, though. That's the thing. Both of those are sound.
Same thing when you're banging on a railroad track. Get somebody a mile away. Put your ear to it. They're a mile away, bang on the track. You hear it instantly through the rail.
Not instant, because the speed of sound in iron, which is what rails are mostly made of, isn't infinite. Because that's not how physics works.
You hear it 5 seconds later through the air. Okay. By telling...
Right, he did eventually get there, that the air sound is going to come in later, which is true, so like... okay, sure.
By setting up a seismograph meters all over the world, they can tell where the earthquake was.
This is crashing right now?
By judging, okay, it took 18 seconds to get to Tokyo, it took 14 seconds to get to Houston, it took 9 seconds to get to Seattle, and they happen right there.
Well, that's annoying. So, in case anyone is wondering, yeah, there's a new computer on the way. And you'll be able to hear about it if we meet the super chat goal. So, yeah. We were at 53.26. And yeah, it did go black because the crashed. I'm taking a drink for, I don't even know why. I'm just doing it. Guys, that new computer can't get here fast enough. So as we wait for my very, very now slow computer to even bring that up, so it is the case that we can tell a lot about the structure of the Earth by studying seismic waves, because we have a good handle of how those waves propagate through different media, as well as the ability to track how they're propagating across the globe via various seismic stations using seismometers, which is the word Kent was looking for. In fact, actually, someone who sometimes is in the chat is PhD Tony, and he does a lot of work with that kind of. In fact, if I remember correctly, his PhD thesis was creating a planar model for seismic wave propagation for use on small scale seismic wave monitoring, if I remember correctly. Tony, if you're there and I'm wrong about that, please correct me. I want to be right about that. Also, I gotta say, I am seeing only 52 likes, but 106 people watching, which means that once again, I have to say that unfortunately, I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve. Renee Resurfacing Fossil Trees Reborn for $5 says, well, this crash has me wanting an update. Yeah, I can see why. And then Kent Long Halstead of Nantucket for $4.99 says, Roshna gets a free super chat on me. Just at him or something. All right, and let me update the counter because that hasn't crashed. Also, I don't know if you noticed, I clicked on the video almost immediately after the screen went black. The reason I'm not currently sharing it with you is because it hasn't opened. It has yet to open. The longer it goes before it opens, the more evidence it is of how desperately I need a new computer. Which fortunately is on the way, and there's also weird updates about it. So yeah, we really should get that update because there's weird stuff going on. Not like sinister or like destructive or anything, just bizarre. Yeah, so Ben, what's up?
Not much. How you doing?
Oh, I'm wondering why we're talking about S&P waves and how this is at all going to tie back
The
to
surface, going to end up on top. Some of it.
Kent's back. I have to share it with Bent though. Bent can't see it. Let's see. So give me a second while I turn off Bent from your vision so that you don't have to see all the weird like off-center me sharing stuff. That looks weird. All right, Bent, you are going to be seeing again pretty soon. You should be able to see him
I
now.
do see him.
All right. We turn you back on. We got a couple things in here. Let's see. Heather Bodacious claims Kunis primary and secondary. Let's see. According to Wikipedia, PNS stands for primary and secondary waves, P waves being pressure waves, and S waves being shear waves. Seems to be coincidental. You know what? I choose to say that it's not a coincidence, and my evidence for that is that I like it better that way. There you go. That's it. That's my evidence for that. I like it better. And in this case, it's unconsequential enough that I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. That Meldevorn, who's been a member for 32 months and is at the Saropsu level, says, your computer is now almost as slow on the uptake as Ken Hovind. Seriously. My Unfinished Journey for $6.66 says, hail Nero, hail Daps and Bent, and hail words that far surpass Kent's ability to comprehend them. Thank you very much. And all right, let's add that in. All right. Madam Sloth says, this timeline us weird. I think you meant to say this timeline is weird, and I agree, it is. Just today, I was mentioning what a stupid timeline it is when the a cabinet-level secretary here in the federal government of the United States thinks that habeas corpus is a power that the president has, when in fact it is a protection against the power of the president, granted in Article 1 of the Constitution, and Article 1 is the part that talks about, Congress, and they're the ones who are allowed to suspend it, and only in times of war or invasion, and then, even then, only when there is a serious threat to public safety, if it is not suspended. Because, former governor and famous puppy murderer, Kristi Noem, thinks that habeas corpus is something that the president does to you. Nope. It's a petition you file with the courts. Say, hey, some guy's being held prisoner by y'all, and you should probably say why. And if you can't, he needs to be released. That's what habeas corpus is. Only Congress has the constitutional authority to suspend it. Of course, who cares? We abandoned the Constitution way back in 2023. So, okay, let's go forward a bit through this timeline here.
World, they can tell where the earthquake was by judging, okay, it took 18 seconds to get to Tokyo, it took 14 seconds to get to Houston, it took 9 seconds to get to...
Okay, I know he's making these numbers up, but those numbers make zero sense at all. But whatever, right? He's making them up. It's okay, it's fine, it's not that big.
To Seattle, they happen right there. It's really amazing how they do that, and they're extremely accurate. Okay, that's not the question. What happens, though, is...
Vishanti is correct. Laws only matter if they're enforced. Otherwise, it's just words. Correct. Although it would be more comforting if the people who were in charge of enforcing those laws could state at the most basic level what any of them were. Like, the most basic level. But, yeah, it's true. Laws only matter if they're enforced. And it turns out that the people who are in charge of enforcing the laws can just go, nah, what if I just don't?
Is through the crust of the Earth, the sound wave travels a different speed than it does through the center of the Earth.
I mean, it's a really dumb way to put it, right? Because through the center of the Earth, do you mean like the actual geometric center? Because, I mean, it doesn't really travel much through that at all. Like, it's usually deflected by the inner core. But, the thing is, he's getting at something that's true, right? The way that we investigate the structure of the Earth is primarily by studying the propagation patterns of SNP waves at seismic monitoring stations and the timing of when they get where and whatnot. That's how we calculate their actual trajectory through the actual Earth. Which, okay, I gotta say something. It's a little weird that he knows this, but also couldn't actually come up with an argument to argue for the globe Earth against flat earthers with that one time he tried. Because this is an argument against it. You cannot account for the patterns of seismic wave propagations on a disk once you actually map them out. If you put the azimuthal equidistant map centered on the North Pole, and then you track when any known earthquake event was registered by different seismic stations, it always forms really bizarre patterns that make no sense at all. But if you track it on a globe, it makes perfect sense. Everything radiates out from a single point in a circle, then it converges on the antipode in another circle, and then sometimes, if it's a strong enough earthquake, it then propagates out again from the antipode and comes back around to the epicenter, and then sometimes it even goes back and forth a few times, all making perfect sense in terms of the timing and the strength in terms of a globe. So Kent knows at least the basics of that, but apparently could not put it together that itself is in fact a great argument against flat Earth. Instead, all he had was calling flat earthers morons, which, while true, isn't an argument. In fact, you're only supposed to use insults like that after the argument that already shows you're right. Then you say the person's. Because otherwise, it just kind of sounds like an ad hominem. And remember, insults and ad hominems are not the same thing. Terrador's final form for 200 Argentinian pesos says, we learned what habeas corpus is in high school in the context of 40s Germany's and 70s and 80s Argentina. Guess what happened to innocent people in both cases? Same basic idea that's happening to innocent people in this case. Just to say, horrible, horrible things are happening to them, including being sent to concentration camps. Because, given that there's this thing called the Holocaust Museum here in the United States, I'm going to go ahead and say that they're probably going to be reasonably authoritative when it comes to what is a concentration camp versus a prison. And the big difference is that concentration camps are places that people are sent to for incarceration without any judicial process, giving them due process. So, anytime you're held somewhere without due process, then congratulations, that place is a concentration camp now. So, guess what that means for a certain Salvadoran prison designed to hold terrorists? Yep, it's just an offshore concentration camp. Which, also, fun fact, most of the Nazi concentration camps, not in Germany. You know why? Because it's easier to do human rights abuses against your concentration camp victims when they're outside of the public eye.
They're called, there's 3 different ones, S waves, P waves, and L waves, I think. It's been a...
I do not remember L waves, but I'm also not a seismologist. So please let me know in the chat, are there L waves? Because that sounds made up, but again, not a seismologist. So, like, I don't know.
A long time since I studied that, but since I taught that.
It still horrifies me that Kent ever taught anyone anything.
By judging, by measuring these types of waves and how long the sound takes to get, let's say there's an earthquake in San Francisco, okay? How long does it take the S wave to get to Tokyo? And how long does it take the P wave to get to Tokyo? Because the P wave, they assume, is going to go through the center, or L, or one of the waves goes through the liquid part, the other part travels around the crust. By putting together all these bits of data in very complex formulas, they've decided they pretty much know the thickness of the crust of the Earth. And I think they're right. Continental crust is 20 to 30 miles thick. Would be a good quiz.
So this is a great example of the fact that when Kent doesn't think that a branch of science contradicts his particular dogmas, that he's okay with accepting those results, right? The problem is that the kind of scientific methods and processes and empiricism and all that go into generating the results that he's okay with, that he'll accept, things like that the continents are currently moving apart, or that the continental crust is thicker than the oceanic crust, or that there's a MOHO discontinuity or discontinuity, if you want to pronounce it like you're an idiot. Which is only applying to first language speakers of English, by the way. If you're English as a second language person and you're trying to learn how to pronounce words by looking at them, I don't care. That you can mispronounce that all you want, because English is weird. But yeah, whenever it does not directly seem to contradict, Kent's like, yeah, fine, that's great. But the problem is that when it does contradict, it was arrived at with the same kinds of techniques, the same basic process of empiricism, hypothesis testing, taking measurements, doing error analysis, doing statistical analysis, all that stuff. All that stuff you learn about if you took like a statistics course and STEM courses, college career if you had one. Which, why is it that it's okay for the thickness of the Earth, but like for radiometric dating or sedimentology or biology, suddenly, nope, science, not okay. Because Kent doesn't actually know what science is fundamental. Kent thinks that science is a collection of facts that you spit back at people who want to know something about the world, right? Like, what's the speed of sound? And he just spits it at you. That's science. And if you know a bunch of facts that you can spit back at people, now you know science. But science isn't just a collection of facts. In fact, the facts of science are probably the least important part of science. It's the theory and how you test the hypotheses that are the actual core aspect of science. That's one of the reasons why most scientists know more where to look things up than they know like every single last little detailed fact in whatever field they're studying, right? Because the important thing are the ideas, the concepts, things that help you predict new data, investigate new questions. Yeah, that's anyway. Jester, who's been a member for 17 months and is at the tetrapod level, says easier outside the country. Hashtag definitely no parallels. With a skull emoji. Yeah. I'm gonna take a drink to stave off the horrific dread. Ray Elgacibello for $2 says, you know what? I'm sorry, Ray. I am just not up for trying to read through Cyrillic alphabet I only kind of barely know. So I'm just gonna take a drink for it because I'm assuming that it's an answers in Genesis. I can take. All right, and then we will update the counter here. All right, and let's see. We have 17 super chats to go, and almost exactly an hour left to get them in. Sanguine Songer bringing it down to 16 left for $5 says, I can't seem to think of something clever to say. I just want a computer update, Mothra, and then just so many of the correct, hardworking, patriotic, sessile tunicates. The kind of tunicates that everyone should aspire to be if you want to be a tunicate. Kinds who know their place, which is attached to the substrate at the bottom of shallow ocean or seas or whatever. You know, I've never actually been able to figure out if there's any actual difference between an ocean and sea other than vibes. It seems like it's just vibes, right? Like seas are kind of smaller and then vibes. I don't know. Mixie for $5 says, science isn't just a bunch of facts, it's a mantra to live by. I mean, to some extent, right? Like, it is a way of investigating the natural world. I don't think you can just directly from science figure out things like answers to ethical quandaries and whatnot. That doesn't mean it's not important for that, right? Because if you are trying to figure out the answer to a ethical quandary, then knowing what the results of different actions will be is important, and science can help you with that. So it's certainly an important part of a way to live, to know enough about science. And then Vishanti, who's been a member for 45 months and is at the tetrapod level, sends 4 disgusting, god-hating, lazy, pelagic tunicates, but also a deal with a Darwin, which is a pretty cool emoji. So I will say boo, 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 boo. Thank you, Vishanti. 1 boo. Oh, there was just a dog on screen. Blinking, you miss it. But Carmen was just on screen. So everyone, get your Carmen emojis in the chat. That's a small dog emoji. Send some Carmen emojis. All right. Have I updated everything? I have not. I am down by $10. All right. And then Science Side Up, who's been a member for 37 months and is at the tetrapod level, sends 3 Mothra emojis, but then 2 disgusting pelagic tunicate emojis. Gross. But we'll still take a drink, because it's Mothra. We take drinks for Mothra here. There we go. There comes some Carmen emojis in the chat. Actually, when I showed that emoji to a friend of ours after I first made it, her first comment was, I forgot how big Carmen's ears are. Yeah, she has really big ears for her head size. I mean, objectively, no, they're actually quite small. But, like, compared to her head, you know, they're pretty big. All right, so we're going to get a little bit more Kent in, and we're going to take a quick break to do things like refresh drinks, use the bathroom if we need to. And I want to say before we do that, remember that we do have Roshana Keller's GoFundMe linked up there. So if you are feeling generous and so inclined, please consider donating to that because, you know, Roshana has fallen on some hard times. And if she is to believe, which I do believe her, not through any fault of her own. So there we go.
His question, how thick is continental crust? Oceanic crust averages 3 to 5 miles thick. Knowing that oceanic crust is thinner, they decided to try to drill down through the ocean floor to find the Moho-Revisic discontinuity.
I still can't believe he's sticking with discontinuity. But also, if I remember correctly, the only hole that ever even approached the Moho discontinuity was the Kola Super Deep borehole, which wasn't in the ocean. It was on land. Because the thing is, like, okay, Kent is right that the ocean crust is thinner. But, okay, Bent, let's say you had to dig a hole.
Okay.
Would you rather do that on land where there's things like air and where you won't be crushed to death if anything ever goes wrong at all, ever? Or would you rather do it at the bottom of the ocean where there's no light, no air, and crushing pressure that is threatening constantly to turn you into a fine pink mist floating away in the water?
I'd probably rather do it on land.
Yeah. So did the Soviet Union, interestingly enough. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, the Soviet Union did a whole bunch of really bonkers, insane, nonsense things. But they weren't that crazy. So, like, unless Kent can cite which drilling this is, I I'm going to press X to doubt on this one, because I've never heard of any, like, oh, we're going to reach the Moho discontinuity under the bottom of the ocean. The English guy says, what version of Windows is Kent using on that laptop? I mean, probably, like, XP, I think. I mean, I don't actually know, but I'm just guessing based on when I think this was made, which is early 2000s. But probably late enough that, like, XP had come out or something? I don't know. Maybe
He's
it was
probably using Windows 8.
8? Not 7?
That's what Kent would use. He would use Windows 8.
He would. I'm switching to Windows 11 when the new computer gets here.
Nice.
That's a freebie. You have to get the other 15 super chats if you want the rest of it. Worm Clan, parenthesis, Worm Clan, close parenthesis, for $5 says, first time donation won't be the last. Krusty Kent will never get thickness of the Earth's crust through his thick skull. Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the first time sending any money to the channel, because, look, the channel does depend on the generosity of the viewers in a very immediate way. But we'll talk about that more than when we get back. So we're going to get a little bit more Kent in, then we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
They were going to drill a hole in the ocean, which is tough to do. I mean, where do you park your drilling rig?
Yeah, Kent, that's a really good question. I wonder if anyone has ever thought of that.
You got to park it on boats, which means they're going
I mean, oil rigs are a thing, Kent, but sure, whatever. Not boats. They're stationary. They're anchored to the seafloor. But you know, whatever, it's fine.
to go up and down with the tide. And they're going to move around. So
I love how he's giving more and more reasons why this is really dumb, and not telling us what this borehole was or who did it or anything, so that we could check up on this. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $2 says he may be referring to the 1961 Project Mohole. That could be it. Look, double check that and send me that info. You don't have to super chat it when we get back. Make sure you tag me. You do have to tag me. You don't have to super chat. Let's see. Let's update the counter here for that one, and then we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back after the break. And my goodness, we have 122 people watching. That's pretty good for this show. I don't normally get that many. Thank you very much, everyone who's watching. If this is your first time, first, welcome. And second, hey, make sure you hit subscribe while you're here so you can see more of these if you enjoy this stuff. And also, I mean, this is number 165. Yeah, we got a big back catalog. Although I will tell you that the first few episodes are... they're a little rough. They're like the season 1 of Star Trek TNG version of our show, right? Like, we don't really know what's going on. The special effects are kind of iffy. We just managed to convince the producers that maybe Patrick Stewart doesn't need an ugly wig and he just be bald and that's okay. And yeah, like that's kind of the first few episodes of Kent with Bent. They're a little rough around the edges. All right, well, we are going to take a quick break. I'm going to refill my drink here, and if you need to, you can go get drinks, popcorn, whatever you want, and then we will be back after the short intermission and enjoy the teaser trailer for the next episode of Star Trek Adventures, which I'll talk about a little bit when we get back.
Captain's Log, Stardate 60046.3. We have received an urgent message from Admiral Talara of Starfleet Command. We are ordered to redirect the ship to the colony on Carina 7 in the Beta Quadrant. The colony's governor, Sarita Sebastian, is reporting a series of strange phenomena that threaten the colony's safety. She states the children born on Carina 7 are aging rapidly. The native flora and fauna are growing rapidly and just as rapidly withering, and structures that should have lasted decades are falling apart. The Kong Z is the closest ship to the colony with quantum slipstream drive, and it is imperative that we discover a solution to the colony's problems.
Carina 7 is a warm M-class planet as near to Earth in terms of environment as it could be hoped. The planet was settled a few years earlier by a group of mostly winemakers, and it is a vital part of the Federation's strategy to improve relations with the Ferengi Alliance. The wine is sold to Ferengi merchants, and the latinum is used by the Federation in dealings with polities that still use currency-based economics. The rapid aging phenomenon threatens this key strategic world, and if the crew cannot solve it, the colony is doomed. Is it a natural phenomenon? Or is it being orchestrated by unseen actors? Or is it perhaps a secret third thing? Find out next time on Star Trek Endurance, only on the Top Hats Off channel.
Okay, we are back. Welcome back. Let's see. We did have someone who asked about the clock, and yes, those are in fact Klingon numerals. And yes, the 8 looks like a turtle. It's true. Alright, so now that we are back, I first want to say, once again, thank you so much for everyone who has donated to Roshna's fundraiser. I think we just got a few more, so I will take a look. Yes, Lance donated $20. So thank you very much, Lance. I really do appreciate it, as I'm sure Roshna does. So, I mean, you guys, it's been amazing. You guys have been amazingly generous. So, thank you very much. All right, so what is going on here? So first, I want to say the Star Trek game that you just saw the teaser trailer for, not happening this week. It is in fact probably happening next week. Last week we had a whole lot of people. We had 2 people who had medical problems. 1 person who had a scheduling conflict from a long time ago for a family obligation. And then originally this was supposed to be our mid-season break. We were going to take a 1-week break this week, which meant that our producer, Chesh, went out and made plans like she has a life or something. What a jerk. And so, yeah, we don't have a producer. So we're just going to continue on with this being our off week, and then we should be able to play next week. So sorry about that. We took an extra little 2 break or something. My apologies. It's possible I'll stream something, but it's unlikely because I probably have a computer that's falling apart. So I'm kind of sick of using it, if I'm being honest. Speaking of which, we only need 14 more teal or higher super chats to get to the computer update, and that is going to run out in 47 minutes. So we have that much time to get 14 more of those teal super chats or above. Which leads us into the quick after the break message, which is to say, guys, this channel is almost entirely supported directly through the generosity of my viewers, whether it be through the Patreon, through the memberships here on YouTube, through super chat, super stickers, super thanks, one-time donations to a GoFundMe every once in a while, like I had a little while back for the computer, anything like that. If you are currently enjoying the show and you can both afford it and are interested and you want to support the channel, the best way is probably Patreon. That's where I get to keep the most of the money of the regular things that I have set up. GoFundMe isn't regular. It's only for special things like, help, I need a new computer. And then after that, it's probably the channel memberships. Both of those get you access to my Discord server. It's just for supporters. Both of them get you early access to videos. A video went up last week on Tuesday and this week on Tuesday. So there's an extra 2 hours of Dapper Dinosaur content, which is a little bit more than that. It just went up over the past 2 weeks, each time on Tuesday, just for members and patrons. And we're like 6 or 7 months ahead on that right now. So like there's hours and hours and hours of content for you to look at if you want to. That being said, if a monthly or an annual thing isn't your deal, there's also a lot of other options. Bent also has a Patreon, but both of us also have Amazon wish lists. For Bent, that's mostly a bunch of food, because remember, the only time Bent eats is when you guys either get him stuff from his wish list or get him pizzas here on these streams. Otherwise, he has to actually huddle into a small ball to conserve energy and body heat and kind of like do like a pseudo hibernation thing where he tries to sleep constantly, and every once in a while he just wakes up to get some water. And so like if you want him to not have to hibernate through most of the year, those two things are great options, either getting the pizza or something from his wish list. For me, it's there's definitely some food on there, but it's mostly stuff that's like recreational stuff, just so that I can get little bits of like dopamine and things every once in a while. Because I do like dopamine. So there's that. There's also a merch store. There's merch listed under the video. If you don't like the things that are there is other options. The merch is more about showing other people how much you like the channel than it is about, getting me money, though, because, I mean, it's a merch store has the profit margins on that are razor thin. So, like, you buy a t-shirt and I make a couple bucks, even though it cost you like $30. So, like, but I still really do like it when people send me pictures of their Dapper Dinosaur merch. So, I mean, if you do get it, please send me the pics, because I want to see your Dapper Dinosaur mugs and t-shirts and blankets and whatnot. All right, that is enough of the commercial break. We have a couple super chats here to read. Jillian Solid Waves Wren says, body heat, y'all live in Arizona. It gets cold in Arizona, Jillian Wren. Thank you very much. So first, Shano07AU for $5 dues says a super chat to hear about the replacement PC with the current PC in its last days before retirement. Hopefully it doesn't go down in the line of duty. I mean, it might at this rate. You saw how long it took just to open up a media player. Like, it is ridiculous. So Lieutenant Math Navigator for $10 says Project Blowhole was an NSF-funded project for deep ocean drilling that was canceled after Phase 1. It did not reach the mantle, but did successfully pioneer dynamic positioning and drilling tech. Okay, that probably makes sense as to why I didn't hear about it. Because it didn't actually accomplish its goal, which was, getting to the Mohole. Whereas, if I remember correctly, the Cobalt Super Deep Borehole did get to the Mohole. Moho, I said Mohole. I've got KSP like stuck in my brain now. All right, and then Lieutenant Matt the Navigator gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you very much. That gets us 5 drinks. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, so and we only need 12 more super chats. We have 42 minutes to do it. I believe in y'all. I think you guys wanted the update on the computer, like where it is, all that good stuff. What this computer is doing, what my schedule is going to be. And also, I want to say thank you to Flavius Josephus, the first century Jewish historian, for a $40 donation to Roshana Keller's GoFundMe. You guys are amazing. Okay, look. I had a couple martinis a few nights ago on my weekend. And then I noticed how much you guys were giving, and I might have had a little bit of an emotional night that night. And I realized just how generous everyone was being. So, like, yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm going to try not to let that happen again with this gin and tonic. And yes, it was the same gin. Mark Schipple for $10 says, 118 watching, but only 65 likes, with a little cry or tear emoji. I agree. Y'all need to step up just a little bit in the like department. It would be greatly appreciated. All right, here we go. Let's get more Kent in, because that's why we're here.
It's a little tougher to park and drill a hole in the ocean floor, but they do that all the time. Anyway, they drilled down quite a ways, never could get through the solid part. And so it's only 5 miles. Well, you drill a hole 5 miles deep.
I mean, yeah, that's a lot. I wouldn't want to drill a 5-mile hole. Unfortunately, Kent is right about this. Actually, today he's been doing better than normal. This is actually a pretty good showing for Kent. far too often I have to say things like, I think this might be the worst we've ever seen of Kent. But today, this actually might be some of the best he's ever been doing. So, like, good job, I guess.
20 feet at a time.
20 feet at a time, or whatever they do, 60 feet or 90 feet with their drilling rigs. So they never did. The project was called Project Moho. They spent.
Yep. Whoever said that in the chat, I think it was Lieutenant Matt the Navigator. You were right. It was Project Moho. Thank you very much. Project I was previously unacquainted with. Look, we're all learning. It might shock everyone, because despite being a professional smartass, I actually don't know everything. I know, Bent, you're very shocked.
Nonsense.
Yeah. You're probably thinking, who is this dapper guy?
I don't even know who you are anymore.
Yeah. Who am I and what have I done with the real dapper? Who clearly does know everything, obviously. It's really easy to seem like you know everything when you're writing a script and you can just look anything up. It's so much easier to seem like you know everything.
Yeah, maybe Kent should try looking things up himself.
What?
I know. I dream.
Buku bucks trying to drill a hole to find.
Oh, you know what? Timo and B's woefully dogmatic chronotastic centrism says confirmed prediction drink trigger. I accept that proposal. That was a confirmed prediction. I'll take a drink, even if it wasn't by me or Bent. Okay. It's certainly nothing to do with the fact that I was kind of getting a little thirsty. Man, please don't clip that part.
The Moho. Never did find it. Some heathen in California started the
Some heathen in California? Okay, cool.
rumor that the Russians had drilled a hole 9 miles deep or something,
You mean like the Kola super deep borehole? The one that did in fact go deeper? Okay, cool. I don't know why this person's a heathen, but sure, Kent, whatever.
Oh, I forget what the number was. And they dropped a microphone down and could hear voices from hell.
It sounds like something a crazy Christian would say, if I'm being honest. Because most pagan religions don't believe in a place of literal, eternal, physical torment that's below your feet. But the idea that Christians have of hell, in fact, for a lot of Christian history, was actually conceptualized as physically below you. Like, if you dug down into the ground long enough, you would eventually get to hell. There's a reason that in Dante's Inferno, Dante physically descends into the earth to get to hell. And that he portrays Purgatory as a mountain antipodal to Jerusalem. Like a physical mountain you could go sail to, hypothetically. And then describes in the Paradiso, describes it as basically just being the solar system, as he understood it. So, like, if anyone's going to start a rumor that you can dig down and then hear the voices of the tormented damned in hell, it's probably going to be a Christian. Now, to be fair, most modern Christians don't actually believe that hell is physically below their feet, or that purgatory is a mountain antipodal to Jerusalem, or that heaven is literally just the solar system. At least none that I've met think that I've found anything out about their beliefs. I don't know, Bent, you're a Christian. Do you think that if you dug down far enough, you'd get to hell?
No, I don't think that.
Do you think you might find purgatory exactly on the opposite side of the earth of from Jerusalem?
No, I don't think.
Do you think that heaven involves like flying to Venus?
No, although that would be fun.
Yes, Pterodorus final form says antipodal. So antipodal means on the exact opposite face, right? So basically, if you were to drill a hole straight through the earth from Jerusalem to whatever the exact opposite side of the earth is, according to Dante Alighieri, that's where purgatory is. And the idea for it being a mountain is basically that as you ascend it, you get closer and closer to salvation. That's why everyone in purgatory, despite the various torments and suffering that they're enduring, is actually very, very happy, unlike the people in hell, who even in the top layer, which is honestly not all that bad according to Dante, are still kind of despairing, because even though they're suffering less than the people at many of the layers in purgatory, they don't have any ultimate hope. Whereas the people in purgatory, they know they're already saved, they're just working through whatever sins and character flaws, if you will, that they still have to go through in order to be perfect so that they can enter heaven. I'm sorry, this was never supposed to be a big long discussion about like the history of the development of ideas about the Christian afterlife. I will read the next super chat and we'll go on with Kent. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, I do not have the number of fingers to count the number of times I've heard this story a little bit. Really? Interesting. I don't know if I've ever actually heard a story, like a sermon, about like the Paradiso or Purgatorio or. Huh. But then again, I mean, I figure it probably would be more common in Catholic churches because it was basically Catholic fanfic, and I have not sat through very many Catholic homilies, although I've sat through a few. Because I've been to Catholic masses, especially whenever the school did it, because I went to a Catholic high school, and it wasn't every week, but I'd say every few months there was some holiday that was big enough that they assembled all the student body and marched them down to the church that looked like a Spanish mission, even though it was in Massachusetts, which is not a place where you get a lot of Spanish missions, in case you were wondering. Jester for $5 says, we smart blank have a code about emitting this. Pay the toll. Enjoy the uprising with a bunch of polite. Then Terrador's final form for 200 Argentinian pesos says, heaven is in the Pacific Ocean confirmed. No. Purgatory is in the Pacific Ocean. Come on, not heaven. Heaven is obviously in space. I don't know why this is tripping people up. Very obvious. Heaven is in space. Purgatory is a mountain opposite Jerusalem. And hell is inside the earth. Very easy. Very easy. All right, here we go.
He made up the whole story. And
yes, Kent, thank you. But also, hey, Kent, you remember the Hovind theory? Where you just made up a whole story? Maybe you shouldn't be the one to pass judgments on people for just starting nonsense rumors. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $2 says, the hell borehole microphone story specifically. Oh, okay. Interesting. I've never heard that one from the public. Or at least not that I remember. I don't know. Probably sat through enough sermons that if I had heard it once, I would have forgotten.
the Christians spread that around like crazy. I mean, everybody's getting emails. Did you hear they heard voices from hell? Just to see how stupid Christians were. They spread this.
Okay, but by you telling us that it spread like wildfire through Christian communities, what you're telling us is that yes, Christians by and large are that stupid. Which I don't actually believe, except when it comes to Kent's brand of Christians, because let's be frank, virtually everything Kent says is no more plausible than hearing the screams of the damned at the Kola super deep borehole. Right? Like, is an ice comet somehow lowering the temperature of the Earth despite only adding energy and also being attracted to the poles because the ice is magnetic for no reason? Like, is that actually less implausible than hearing the voices of the damned and at the bottom of a super deep hole? I don't see why it is. Right? It's like that time someone told me, like, oh, I don't believe in Enoch because it's full of impossible things, but Genesis is literally true. What? How do you make this distinction? How? There's no distinction to be made there. We've got a few more super chats. Olivia Williams for $6.99 Beaver Bucks says, I would like someone to ask Kent when fungus was created. The Bible sure doesn't say, with a Ghidorah and we'll take a drink. I think he would just say that they were created on the same day as the plant. That's my guess. Yep. In fact, I would guess that if you asked the author of Genesis 1 when he thought mushrooms were created, he would also say the day of the plants. I don't think the author of Genesis 1 knew that mushrooms weren't. Kent Long Halstead of Nantucket for $4.99 says, how am I supposed to breathe in space? What the hell, God? No, don't worry. You have your heavenly body that doesn't need to. It's problem solved. Sanguine Sonder for $5 says, I'm an IT guy. The best way to get your computer to last as long as you need is to sacrifice a chicken to the tech gods. Trust me, deal with it, Dapper, and an AIG is a bag of dicks. So, first we'll take a drink, because that counts as an AIG as a bag of dicks, if I ever saw one. So look, I have a Cult Mechanicus Thurible on my wish list, and my goal was to get it so that I could burn sacred incenses while performing the maintenance rituals on my computer. But so far, no one has bought it for me yet, so I haven't actually been able to sufficiently, propitiate the machine spirit of my cogitator. So, if you guys really want my next computer to last long, someone should get me the Thurible from the Cult Mechanicus so that I can say the proper machine incantation, or not prayers and, supplicate the machine spirit of my new computer to continue to not rebel against me, because I'm pretty sure this computer has some kind of scrap code going on. And Bent is completely lost because, for some reason, Bent doesn't know anything about the Cult Mechanicus.
The what now?
The Cult Mechanicus.
Yeah.
You probably never even heard of the Omnicide.
I don't think so.
Bent is a heretic with a T-E-K at the end. Heretic. Boris's Dapper is awesome. I'm just a gigantic nerd. I spent a good portion of my my weekend this past weekend trying to recreate the old 90s GW spiky cactus terrain piece, but in Blender, so I could scatter it around maps, because at some point I would like to run a 40k TTRPG. So I spent a good period of time doing that, and then making an Eldar webway, or webgate, or whatever, webway gate, sure, there you go, model. Rochno, why not? Zoidberg Keller says, get a Russian Orthodox cardinal and or bishop to bless your PC. Well, first, they don't have cardinals. Second, I don't even know where the nearest Rokor bishop is. Let's find out. Rokor bishopric. Oh, I put one too many R's in Rokor. Let's see. Rokor bishoprics. List of bishops of the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia. Let's see. So there's one in Eastern America and New York. Let's see. That's not even in the States. Let's see. San Francisco and Western America. That's probably His Grace Kirill, Archbishop Kirill, who actually looks surprisingly young. Does it say where his see is? Let's see. San Francisco, ethnic Russian immigrant, St. Vladimir Cemetery, that makes sense. Joy of All Sorrow Cathedral in San Francisco. Is that where the relics of St. John Maximovich are stored? I don't know. Bishop of Seattle, Vicar of the Western American Diocese. So I want to look up that. So Western American Diocese, Rokor. Once again, I put too many R's in there. Why am I doing that? Western American Diocese, home. Located in San Francisco. Let's see. I think that would be the closest Russian Orthodox bishop. Archbishop Kirill of San Francisco. I don't think it's reasonable that I would be able to get him out here. One thing I do want to point out is that Rokor, the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, which is technically an autonomous division of the Russian Orthodox Church, but it's not autocephalous, which means technically Metropolitan Kirill of Moscow has to prove of their metropolitan when he's elected, although it's usually just a rubber stamp. They actually did publish a statement condemning Patriarch Kirill of Moscow in regards to him approving of Russia's very obviously illegal invasion of Ukraine. So I want to give props to Rokor, because technically Kirill is their boss, and yet they were still like, nope, this isn't okay. And also, I don't actually know what their standing is currently in the Eastern Orthodox communion broadly, because Patriarch Bartholomew actually excommunicated Patriarch Kirill a few years back over the war in Ukraine, and that was not universally reciprocated by all other autocephalous churches in the Eastern Orthodox Church. But I don't know to what degree that extends to Rokor. I think that at least in North America, most of the other North American jurisdictions are still in communion with Rokor. Although that might actually be different for the Greek Archdiocese, because they're technically in the ecumenical patriarchate on Bartholomew, which is weird. Anyway, this is also not supposed to be what weird ecclesiastical things to do with the Eastern Orthodox Church. I don't know what's going on here. How do you guys get me to do these things? First, we're talking about Catholic soteriology, and now we're talking about Eastern Orthodox ecclesiology. I guess it's better than talking about Kent in some ways. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go down this ridiculous rabbit hole. I first need to update this counter because I have been slacking. So let's see. There we go. And then Nicholas Brody for $4.99 says, remember to draw all your blueprints in gold ink on scrolls, as we learned to do in Canticle for Leibowitz. Oh, I haven't read Canticle for Leibowitz in a long time. Good stuff. All right. Let's get some more Kenton, which doesn't have anything to do with getting a Russian Orthodox Church bishop to bless my computer. Also, why would it be Russian Orthodox? Like, why specifically that? Like, what's wrong with like a Greek guy or like Antiochian guy? Or even an OCA guy? The quote-unquote autocephalous church in America that's only recognized as autocephalous by the Russian Orthodox Church, but still recognized as validly Orthodox by everyone. Shanti for $2 says, what's next? Split ergatives with a Mothra? Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me, because I'll do it. Here's a drink. Ugh. That might be the weirdest rabbit hole I've gone down in this entire channel history. Like, who would technically be my bishop if I went to a Rokor church here in, like, Arizona?
This rumor all over the place, you know. That type of stuff circulates all the time. Oceanic crust is certainly thinner than continental crust. That's the point. Nobody argues with that.
You know what, Ken? I'm sure we can find someone who does, but sure, whatever. You don't, and it's accepted in science. So, like, whatever.
That might also indicate this had something to do with the flood.
How? How does the fact that there are different thicknesses of crust have anything to do with the goddamn flood, Kent? Taking a drink. Oh my god. Okay. I do want to say we only need 3 more super chats and we have 24 minutes. We can do it. We need 3 more. Okay, so why is the oceanic crust thinner? Well, it's for a very good reason. It sinks more into the mantle, and therefore it kind of melts down a little bit. Because one of the things you gotta remember is the mantle rock is actually denser than the crust rock. And it also has a higher melting point. So some things that go under the under the crust actually melt when the mantle itself is still basically solid. So, of course, it's the sign of the flood.
The Bible says, the mountains lifted up, the valleys sank down.
Okay, but it says that in the Psalms about the creation, not about the flood. We already checked on this. It's a psalm about the creation. And I do understand why, if you take it out of context, some of the verses do sound like they're about the flood, but they're fundamentally not. Check back last time where we actually read through the psalm, see that it is in fact a psalm about creation. Also, if you want to cite a psalm, you cite psalm number, verse number. You don't cite Book of Psalms chapter. There are no chapters in the Book of Psalms. There are psalms. Quote unquote chapter. Eve of Everything for $5 dues says, for the update. Thank you very much. Also, I don't know if y'all noticed, but over on Top Hats Off, I read out a super chat in Canadian dollars as beaver bucks, and it broke Craig hard. It took him a while to recover after that one. So, and if you're wondering, that is Craig McNeil FTFE. Mixie for $5 says, as an ordained priest in the community of Christ, I'll say a prayer your computer holds out. Hope it helps. Thank you very much. I hope it helps too. Wait, isn't the community of Christ one of those non-Latter-day Saints but still Mormon movement churches? That's like the one that Emma Smith sort of headed up after Joseph Smith's death? Or am I thinking of something else? Because I think that's the community of Christ. If I'm wrong about that, please let me know. But I think it's that group. And actually, you're not the only community of Christ person who's like frequently around in the chat. So I find that to be an interesting thing because it's not a big denomination, from what I understand. So I find it interesting that we've got a few of them. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, Psalms, get chapter title. No. Nazumi Tomato for $2 says, guess I'll chip in. Unfortunately, the $2 ones don't actually do it. However, Lieutenant Matt the Navigator got us the final one that we needed. And then, let's see, Matea Nauhart for 50 secs, thank you very much, says, never underestimate the power of creationists interpreting the Bible to mean anything they want it to. It's true. They will just shred that Bible into tiny little pieces to get it to say what they want. Absolutely no actual respect for the integrity of it, or its original meaning, or anything like that. DM sponsored by Joshua Geese Wing. Okay, hold on. I gotta get over that one. For $5 says, I hereby bless the new PC in the name of Darwin, Atheismo, Momthra with the Mothra emoji. We'll take a drink. Thank you very much. Okay, so let me update this, and then we will get the computer update, and then we'll get back to Kent. So what is going on with the computer? So first, originally, it was supposed to get here sometime between the 24th and the 28th. However, it looks like it's going to get here a couple days early and should be here on Thursday, although I'm double checking the tracking information right now. Yes, it should be here on Thursday. Okay, so I am currently in the process of migrating files off of my C drive onto my external hard drives that are important for production purposes. So that is something that I will probably be doing a lot more of tomorrow. Also, in a weird twist, all the money that I sent to Amazon for this, which is over $4,000, is currently just back in my bank account. And I was told by the bank when I called them about this that it would be, the transaction would be posted today and the money would be gone again. But that hasn't happened. And so now I'm a little bit worried that there's going to be like $4,000-ish that just disappears from my bank account one day when I'm not looking. Like I don't know what's up with that. On the other hand, like at a certain point, they lose their opportunity to take the money from me. Because I mean, I'll be honest, I could think of nice things to do with an extra $4,000. You know, a lot of which is paying taxes, if I'm being honest. Because, oh boy, when you don't have money coming out of your pay for taxes, you have to all be paid in a lump sum beginning of the year. Boy, do you become acutely aware of just how much taxes you're paying. So, like, yeah, I don't know. If anyone has ever had a similar problem, please let me know, because, like, I don't know what to do about that. I called the bank, they're like, well, they didn't take it out yet, but they're probably going to do it today, and then they just don't. So, like, is there, like, a time limit? I don't know. Seems like a lot of money for them to just not take. Terrador's final form for 200 Argentinian pesos, and now I can see that this window is starting to die, so I'm going to refresh it. But in China mythology, the Tiwi Nem was making all the fishes. He was molding one and sneezed, accidentally squeezing all of the fat out of it, and that's where eels come from, and that's my favorite creation myth. I like that. I also like eels, especially freshwater eels from Japan, because they are absolutely delicious. And I have maintained that I could probably eat like 20 of those in a sitting and just continue to come back for.
Yeah, me too.
Like whole eels, just devoured. Yeah, especially if they put them in the like unagi sauce. Serving those freshwater eels, absolute just top tier fish dish. What just be? I think the carbon monoxide detector might be running low on batteries.
That's not good.
Well, not great, but it's also not that big a deal. Those batteries aren't exactly impossible to get. Doesn't it run on like a D cell or something?
I don't know. I don't remember.
If it is, I mean, we can get one tomorrow at the grocery.
Yeah.
All right, so that is the update on the computer. Yeah,
I'm gonna go deal with that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go deal with that.
I'll turn off your video feed. Oh, there it is.
Okay.
I just lost my train of thought. Okay, so if there are more questions about the PC, let me know. So currently my plan is to finish migrating any files that I need over the next day or two. And I do plan on doing the stream on Thursday with Chesh on this computer, because the new computer won't be here on time. And then I'm actually thinking about also doing the Saturday stream on this computer if it lasts long enough, because I want to have the whole weekend to make sure that setting up all the production programs and files that I need is like good to go on the new computer. I want to have enough time so that way, because I'm going to need to re-download and reinstall and get my preferences set up for Audacity, for OBS, For I guess for GIMP, it's not that big of a deal. And for Blender. And that will actually be a bit of a project, installing all those, making sure they match by previous settings, making sure all my assets are loaded into OBS correctly in the right order, testing everything. So I think I'm going to do that over the weekend, and which also probably means that in an effort to, not burn out, I will probably be taking it pretty easy tomorrow. I'm probably just going to basically take the day off except for file transfers, and then also really not do a whole lot of work on Thursday other than making sure that all my files have migrated properly and that has not broken OBS. So that is the plan in terms of scheduling for that. So if you have further questions about the computer, please let me know. All right. Oh, see, Jillian Solid Waves friend says, see, you're supposed to check those batteries around the start and end of daylight savings time, so that's why you don't know. Oh, right, because we don't do that. Okay, that makes sense. And was it in fact batteries?
Yeah, it's 3 AA's. I don't know why it's 3, but it's 3.
And it was a weird number, but do we have AA's?
Not enough. We'll have to buy more.
Oh no, we'll just do that.
Yeah.
Did you take the batteries out?
Yes, I did.
What if we die of carbon monoxide
Then
between
we'll be
now and
dead.
then? And you're okay with that?
I'm okay with the logic of it.
All right, here we go.
Well, where's going to be the weakest place? 3 miles of rock or 30 miles of rock?
Oh, Prixie Solus Dyslexic Purple says, sometimes Amazon doesn't want the seller to charge until there is a delivery confirmation. That could make sense, and it's a lot of money. Okay. Because, look, here's the thing. For my own sanity, I want the money to just come out of my account and be done with it. But, like, what if that's not what happens? Zero One says that just means it operates on 4.5 volts. That's assuming that they are wired in series. What if they're wired in parallel and we just don't know about it, Zero One? I mean, that seems very unlikely, because what would possibly be needing that much capacity? Because, you can add the kilowatt hours when you wire batteries in parallel, but you add the voltages when wired in series. Yeah. Anyway, actually, it's not kilowatt hours. It's total. What's it like? Maximum amperage that you can come out of it. It has to do with like reducing the effective internal impedance. I don't know. Look, I was an electrician a very long time ago. Please forgive me. I don't remember all the rules about electricity. I do remember though that if it's buzzing, humming, it's definitely not unpowered, and you should double check about that. Don't reach in there. Which does not mean that if it's not buzzing, it is unpowered. I had someone say, well, you can't just say that, because what if it's actually not unpowered, but it's not buzzing? It's like, I didn't say if it wasn't buzzing, it was safe. I said if it is buzzing, it's definitely not safe. There's a difference between those statements. People are idiots. Anyway, here we go.
3 miles. That's the place that's going to sink down. So maybe that's why they're the oceans.
No, Kent, it's not. That's just you making up stuff. Like that person whom you complained about making up the voices of the damned at the bottom of the Cola Super Deep borehole. Taking a drink.
30 miles thick under the continents, 3 to 5 miles under the oceans. Nobody argues with that I'm aware of. Okay.
Oh, wait, I said Chana, but it was Chana. My apologies, Territor's final form. I just noticed the stress marker, which I should have included in by the accent on the second A when you were actually just spelling it in photography.
And the Earth is certainly broken up into plates, and almost all volcanic activity and earthquake activity is along these cracks.
That's true. We'll take a drink. Some of the only seismic activity that happens anywhere else is a result of either upwellings from the mantle or isostatic rebound, like in the eastern United States, like places like Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and whatnot. Those places get occasional earthquakes, and they're from isostatic rebound. But other than those two things, yeah, it's pretty much all at the edges of plates.
They're still moving. There's a ring around the Pacific Ocean. It's called the Ring of Fire.
Ooh, he's
where
right
there
about
are
that
many
too. Take care.
earthquakes and volcanoes right through Japan, right up here through South America, right up the coast of California, San Andreas Fault, right across Alaska. This is one of the major They think the whole Pacific plate, this whole plate is turning.
Okay, that's true, but that's not the reason for all of these. The real reason is because the Pacific plate is basically subducting under continental plate around more or less its entire margin, which means that as the oceanic crust goes under the crust of the continents, that rock actually starts to melt. Because, like I said earlier, the rock of the crust actually generally has lower melting points than, say, the rock of the mantle, which is why the mantle generally acts like a solid, even though when various crustal plates go into the mantle and melt. And then that melting causes increases in pressure, which then, causes that now magma to start seeping up in order to relieve that pressure, which can cause things like cinder volcanoes and all sorts of dike swarms, which don't have anything to do with like keeping the Netherlands safe. It's in fact a kind of volcanic formation that doesn't involve like a mountain, but just fissures that kind of open up. So yeah, there you go.
And that's pretty obvious that it is turning, because if you go visit some place where they put up a fence or a wall or poured a highway, you'll see the highway is offset, or the fence is offset, or whatever, There's all sorts of real direct evidence. Yes, these plates are moving.
Interesting. Because there's a lot of direct evidence of evolution, Kent. You don't seem to care about that. Kind of weird.
Now the question is, how long has it been going on?
At this point, like 300-ish million years, give or take, roughly.
The Christian who believes the Bible says, oh, this has been going on since the flood, 4,400 years ago.
Okay, so the guy who doesn't care about the actual physical evidence, who hates science, says something that's very obviously wrong and kind of dumb. Got it?
That's when this all started.
Mm-hmm.
And the plates are still moving. No big deal. Thin spots would sink down. Thicker places would lift up in response.
Wait, why? Why does the sinking of a thin spot, which is due to density, not thinness, cause the continental crust to go up?
Magic.
Like, okay, I have ice in my glass here. I'm going to take my straw out. I'm going to push some of the ice down. Oh, nope, did not cause any noticeable increase in the height or of how high anything else is floating. I don't know. That doesn't, why does it, look, if that made any sense to you in the chat, please let me know. I don't know what he's getting at. Also, Bent, I think you're going to have to continue to go hungry today. I don't think we're getting up to 90%.
Yeah, but there is still stuff on my wish list.
It's true.
So, maybe.
That is true. Maybe someone will get you, like, I don't even know what's there, cream of wheat?
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Because you're not allowed to go to the grocery store.
It's too far away. Even though I've been there twice today.
Which exaggerates the problem even worse. Now the water's going to run off faster. It may start off running off real slow, and then as the more weight gets over here, it accelerates, okay? And you get...
I'm sorry. Is Kent saying that the thing keeping the continental crust down, physically down, not like oppressed, was the weight of the flood water? And then in the course of like the month or so of drainage of the flood water, that it draining off the continental crust was enough to actually cause the crust to then, during that month, rebound up fast enough to noticeably increase the rate of drainage of the water? Is that what he's just said there?
It sounds like it.
Because currently, like right now, the eastern United States is undergoing isostatic rebound after last glacial maximum. And that uplift is, well, it's glacial, if quite honestly. And if anything, that glacier was probably weightier than whatever water he's talking about. I don't think that that's a physical possibility. Yeah, I don't think that's a thing, Kent. That. Do you think he ran any numbers on like the mechanical properties of like the continental crust or anything? No.
No way.
No, just vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just vibes.
I'd like to hear his evidence.
You have heard his evidence. It would be convenient for him if it were true. The only evidence he ever has. He doesn't even normally have the Bible on his side. That's how bad the evidence is. Taking a drink, because that's... Yeah, wow. Okay.
Different types of erosion in the same area. So the mountains lifted up, the waters rushed off, and the erosion would be very rapid. I just flew over Idaho, coming from Spokane, Washington to Salt Lake, and I was at the window in the airplane with the camera.
I've been to both of those places. I like Salt Lake City better. But, you know. Actually, I think the only real place I've ever been in Idaho that I've ever spent any amount of time is Pocatello. Which is fine. I like Pocatello just... But I just really like the grid-based streets that are super wide in Salt Lake City. There's a lot of stuff that I have to say about Brigham Young that I don't like about that guy. But when it came to deciding how big the streets were going to be and where they should be oriented, no notes. Absolutely excellent. Jester for $5 says, but hear me out with just a bunch of Ghidorahs, and we will take a drink for that. Thank you very much. Also, I kind of wish that in the anime trilogy, we'd gotten, like, more of Ghidorah. Because, like, in that one, Ghidorah was, like, an eldritch monstrosity with, like, cosmic horror vibes. But, like, they didn't do much with that, which is kind of disappointing.
Videotaping, all sorts of things. It looks just like somebody left the water running. Enormous erosion marks up there. When you guys flew from California, have you flown back here? You never flown?
See, the thing is, he's actually right about that part of the country having enormous erosion marks. And he's even right that it's largely flood runoff. But what that means is that geologists can recognize large-scale, like regional-scale flood runoff. And they can know when it is there, but also importantly, when something that you're looking at isn't flood runoff. Which means that if Kent wants to generalize that fact to things like, say, the Grand Canyon, it doesn't work. Because he's relying on the estimation of actual geologists in order to conclude correctly that places like the Channel Scablands are large-scale flood runoff. But by that very same authority, the Grand Canyon definitely isn't. Although there is some evidence to suggest that the initial channel was originally as a result of a flood. But that from that point on, it was subsequent relatively slow erosion. So, like, I don't want to say there was no involvement from it. But it's much more complicated than just, there was big flood and it carved out a canyon.
Okay, yeah. You drove one time, okay, you can't see it from the ground too well, but from the air you can really see this erosion, water runoff. And you can just sit and stare out the window for hours thinking, man, there was a flood.
Yes, there was. But it wasn't a global flood. Jeez, I'm taking... The fact that floods have happened in the past does not on its own mean that there was a global flood. That's not how anything works. Like, sometimes, I know I live in the desert, but sometimes it rains here. And that is not evidence that it's raining everywhere. Sometimes it has been raining here. I have been talking to other people, and where they were, it wasn't raining. You can believe that. Yeah. Similarly, it can flood in one place and not be flooding elsewhere. So finding evidence of a flood in one place is not evidence that it flooded everywhere when it flooded there. That's just not how logic works. Or weather, or floods, or anything, really.
All over the world there's evidence of this massive flood. This is Slick Rock in Arizona. Gorgeous rock formations.
Hi, Cindy Lincoln. If you're watching this. First of all, I want to say I forgot. Bent Cindy sends her best.
Oh, thank you.
Talked to her a few days ago. She said, give Bent my best, and I really forgot. So first, I'm sorry, Cindy. Didn't mean to do that. Also, I first looked into this rock formation when responding to a video featuring Cindy Lincoln prominently. It is in my video series, Helping Cindy Lincoln. which I looked into this, and this is in fact Aeolian sand deposits, by which I mean it is, or Aeolian, whatever. This is wind deposited. We can tell because there are characteristics of the sand grains. So in wind deposited sandstone, sand grains that are making up the sandstone have a characteristic level of roughness. They range from sub-rounded to subangular, which means that they have a sort of medium amount of erosion on the individual grains. They also tend to be frosted, which these are, which means that they've had a lot of micro impacts that kind of turned them from clearish quartz crystals mostly to kind of opaque. It's sort of like, like you have a nice clear window, but if you scratch it up a bunch, now it's going to be kind of like it's frosted, right? You'll be able to see through clearly. The sand grains have that same character. Also, there is no evidence of any aqueous transport. And so, yes, this is in fact evidence against the flood. This formation could not have formed under a flood because it has all of the characteristics of wind-borne sand that then later consolidated. Now, it did flow into really cool shapes, but Spence, did you know that air can flow?
I did know that. Air is a fluid.
Air is a fluid.
Yeah.
You think Kent knows that?
I hope so, but I doubt it.
All right. Well, we're going to get a little bit more of Kent in, and then we're going to break. And then also, I'm going to have to remember to download the next Kent CSE thing for next time, because we only have about just under 10 minutes left of this. Which, wait a minute. We haven't even gone through 10 minutes today. Still, I'm going to download the next one.
Had to be formed very rapidly, I believe.
That's just dumb and wrong. It, in fact, did not form particularly rapidly compared to other sandstones. I'm just going to take a drink. Kent just looking at it and is like, that looks cool. I bet it was a flood. Kent, you'd say that about anything. You don't have any reasons for that.
Because of this flood. So there's just lots of water erosion. Here's
I mean, okay. Just no explanation as to why that seems like a flood deposit to him. Just, it looks cool, therefore flood. Even though all the rocks that don't look cool apparently are also from the flood. So, like, I don't know. I don't know why he even bothered to show that. He made no point at all. I guess it was just like, hey man, this gives me flood vibes. It should give you flood vibes. Okay, well, it doesn't. Because, I happened to look into it. I did that thing that creationists never want to do called looking it up. I went and read papers. I want to say thank you to Anonymous for gifting or donating $25 to Roshna's GoFundMe. All right, so we're going to do some wrap-up stuff right now. First, I want to reiterate my huge gratitude towards everyone who donated to Roshna's GoFundMe. I do not know how long it is going to be up, but hey, if you are feeling generous and you have some extra cash, that is one place that it could go do some good. So yeah, please, if you can afford it, that would be something that I would ask is toss a few dollars to Roshna Keller. Roshna deserves it. So, Bet, what do you have coming up that people should know about?
Nothing at all.
All right. For 200 Argentinian pesos, Terrador's Final Forum says, one of my professors was a creationist geologist. Weird. As a person, he is marvelous. He is the best. As a professional, his whole career is finding sedimentary rocks laid by water and saying they were laid by water in a paper. Not exactly super controversial, but hey, you know what? Good for him, I guess? I don't even know. Kent Longhalstead of Nantucket for $4.99 says, Bent is a good boy with a thumbs up. Congratulations, Bent. You are officially a good boy.
Oh, thank you.
No
I've done
treat,
my
though.
best.
No treat.
Oh.
Because we didn't get to that 90% mark.
Ooh.
We didn't even really get halfway there. Leave it.
Well, it's not too late, but it's pretty close to too late.
It is pretty close to too late. I think unless people are going to start donating like really big super chats, it's probably not going to. But who knows? Maybe Joshua Geese is even more generous than we think.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, so what is coming up for me? All right, well, on Thursday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I am going to be having a premiere, and that premiere will be Timothy Cleary and Human Bones in Oil. Because, yes, Timothy Cleary actually thinks that there's a fair chance that in oil deposits deep underground there will be human bones that are available to be found. I don't know how to describe exactly how stupid that is. It's completely bonkers. It's definitely not true. And quite frankly, it's still hard for me to believe that that is the topic of a video I made. And I'm the one who made it. I was there. I remember doing it. And still, when I look at that thumbnail, I'm like, nah, that's fake. But no, it's real. It's on my channel. It's coming out on the 22nd. Okay, so then later on the same day actually, at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, I am doing my first and so far only members only live stream. If you want to watch, you do have to be a member, and that includes if you are a moderator. If you are a moderator who is not currently a member, you will not actually be allowed in. I checked. I don't think there's a way to change that. So, like, I don't know. Most of my moderators also have memberships, so it won't come up much. But do know that if you are a moderator who is not currently a member, you won't be able to get in. But that is going to be to give an on-air Klingon lesson to Chesh, because I think it was last week, we did a super chat goal that if it was met, we would do a members-only live stream in I teach. It will actually be her second Klingon lesson from me. We did one a few weeks back over Discord where we just had a call and we went over some pronunciation stuff. We're probably still going to do a lot of pronunciation stuff because Chesh's Klingon pronunciation is still a little rough. And by a little, I mean not much of that lesson up until today. So there will be a lot of attempts at getting Chesh to read words, which is always a bit of a struggle for her, because while Chesh is in fact a very smart person, she's not known for being the best at pronouncing. So that'll be on Thursday. On Friday, there will not be a Top Hats off stream. In fact, there probably won't be a stream. I don't really want to try to stream again with this computer until I have to, which will be Saturday. Saturday at noon, I think we might actually be finishing up the Bodhi Hodge Tower of Babel book. We only have like a chapter and a half left, and I'm going to talk to Kip and Vishanti, but I think we might just push through until the end, finish it, done with it. Then next Tuesday, the plan right now is Jackson with Jackson. I have to double check with Jackson, make sure he's good for that, but he almost always is, so I don't expect that to go forward. If it's not Jackson with Jackson, I don't know exactly what it'll do, but it will be something, and it should be on the new computer. So there you go. Hopefully that means things like I can pull up video files in less than 20 minutes. You know, I can restart the computer in less than a half hour. Things like that. Yeah. I won't have to restart my computer to get Audacity to load an audio file. That was also a thing that occurred recently. So, you know, I'll have a computer that works at a basic level. All right, so I think that is basically everything up for a week or so. And like I said, I do not know how long Roshna is keeping the GoFundMe up, but I suspect it will be up for a fair while. So if you watch this in the future, please do check, see if you can still donate. And if you can, feel free. I know that I would appreciate it too, because quite frankly, I want the people who are in my audience to be doing well. You know, I want you all to not be homeless as a result of some company firing you for having a disability. That's some bullshit. And yeah. All right, well, with that, if you are interested, we are going to be watching 4 episodes of Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel. We are almost done with that season, so if that is something you might enjoy, go head over to my Discord server, and we'll be doing that. And if that's not something you would enjoy, then don't do that. Something else. Watch another Dapper Dinosaur video. That's what you should do. Watch another Dapper Dinosaur video. All right. And then, of course, that all assumes that I can actually get Netflix to open up and play without, like, my computer crying. So, like... Anyway, I hope to see all of you on Thursday at least once, and for most of you, twice. So, I will talk to all of you later. Have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and don't ever believe anything just because Ken Hovind, because him saying it is actually good reason to disbelieve it. All right, bye, everybody.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Tovind, Furgevara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Max Cherry, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, Elleron Teller, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostig von Mennen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Sphincter of Doom, and Volus. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.